late. Good evening. I hope you are all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Sanhedrin Daf Tzadi Gimel. And I don't know if you saw the size of Daf Tzadi Gimel, but it's not small. And we're not doing a blot and a half tonight because I have a job. So what we're going to do is, as much as we can, we will learn a blot. This blot is equivalent to a blot and a half in any other Masechta.
I don't think we're catching us.
I don't know when we're going to catch up. I did look ahead, but I think the methodology is to do like a blot and a quarter every day in this parak because it's unmanageable and unruly to do it in a different way. I know I have 2 years to catch up. I have 2 years, 2 months, and 14 days, but who's counting? You are hurting my feelings right now. Just want to let you know you're not helping anyone. I know. Okay, here we go. We're on the bottom of Tzadi Beis Amid Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom at the words Tanu Rabbanon. The rabbis teach us in a brisa. B'shah shehipil Nebuchadnezzar harasha es Hananiah, Mishael ve'Azariah lekiv shanaish. At the time when Nebuchadnezzar put the last 3 Nevi'im that we know of into the kivshan, into the fire itself, Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu liYechezkel. Hashem said to Yechezkel, Lech v'hachyei mesim bebikas dura. Go do some tchias hamesim, which is an unbelievable conversation to have with the Eibishter. Kevan Shechio son, once they were alive. Bo atzamos v'tafchu lo le'osa rasha alpana. We're not talking about Chagai Zachar Malachi. They didn't die. There were other people that were killed in this location of Bikas Dura. And these bones, I guess they didn't have flesh on the bone yet. And Bo Atzamos V'Tafchu Lo Le'osa Rasha Alpanav. Do you imagine the skeleton? This is like, I don't know, what was the name? X-Files. The name of that movie when we were little kids, the show? The skeletons walking down the street and smacks Nebuchadnezzar upside the head. So Omar, he said, Ma Tivan Shel Elu. Says Nebuchadnezzar, what is going on with these skeletons? So Amrulo, his vizier said to him, or his advisor said to him, Chavrein shel elu mechayim mesim bebikas dura. This is the chevra of Chagai Zachar Malachi, and Yechezkel was mechayim, the people in Bikas Dura. These are the guys. Now, if you remember the story from yesterday, remember there were these very, very handsome guys who were generating an aroused reaction from women in the community. Those were the people that he killed and trampled. Those were the people that were revived. Pasach ve'Amar. Now Nebuchadnezzar saw how gewaldik HaKadosh Baruch Hu was. And he actually started to praise Hashem. Look at this. Doesn't seem that way from the Gemara. It says that I guess the women were kastim. The previous Gemara says that the kasios, let's see who they were. Yes. Yeah, correct. They were Jews. Yeah, they were. All right, Pasach v'Amar, 9 lines or so from the bottom. What was Nebuchadnezzar's response? Nebuchadnezzar said, Asohi kama rabravin. Look at the osos, look that he made. They're so great. The samhohi, the wonderment, kama sekifin, how powerful. Malchuse malchus alam. What does that sound like? Malchuscha malchus kol olamim. V'shaltine am dor v'dor. Umamshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Who wrote that pasuk? David HaMelech. This is not new. Amar Rav Yitzchak, Yutzak Zav Rosech L'tzoch Piv. They poured liquid gold into his mouth. Shel Osa Rasha. Shel Male Lo Ba Malach B'Sitra Al Piv. If nobody stopped Nebuchadnezzar from his praise, then Bikesh Leganos Kol Shiros V'Sushbachos She'amar David the Sefer Tehillim. His praise was so good. He was on par with David HaMelech. And could you imagine, it like reminds me of Bilam, Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkanosecha Yisrael. You have a Rasha Gomor who's praising the Eibishter like the best psalmist in the world. So that was what was going on. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis teach us in a brisa. Shisha Nisim Nasu Ba'oso Ayom. On the day that Chagai, Zachariah, and Malachi were put into the Kivshan, 6 miracles happened. Number 1, Ve'elu Ein Saf HaKivshan. The Kivshan, the kiln that they were in, floated upwards. The Nifratz HaKivshan, the walls broke down. The Humak Sodo, and the floor collapsed. There are different girsas. Some don't say Sodo, some say Soro, some say Sido. Big machlokes as to what this word is. Maybe not a big one, but there's a machlokes. V'nepach tzelem al panav. There was also an idol of Nebuchadnezzar that fell on its face. V'nisrfu arba malchios, and 4 kings died. V'hechye Yechezkel esamesim bebikas dura. And of course, as mentioned, these good-looking gentlemen who were killed by Nebuchadnezzar were revived. Now, the Kulhu Gemara, most of these are traditions, except for one, the Arba Malchios Kra. But the 4 people who died were from a pasuk. The pasuk says, Unebuchadnezzar Malka, Shalach lemichnash, he went to go gather the following 7 people. La'achashtar Penaya, Sagnaya, Upachvasa, Adaragzaria, Gadbaria, Datbaria, Taspaya, the Kol Shiltonim Medinta, the Gomer. These are all the 7 people that he was trying to collect and bring them all together. Uchsiv, and it also says, what does the pasuk say? Isai Guvran Yehudain. Some of these people were Jews. I don't know how that fits in over here because they were not all Jews. Uchsiv, and the pasuk says in Miskanshin, and then when they were gathered later, only 3 of the 7 were there because 4 of them died. Umiskanshin achashtar penaya, sagnaya, upachvasa, behidbari malka, chazyan legavraya, elech vegomer. So what we can see is that not all 7 made it out. Some of them didn't make it out, and that was one of the miracles. Tani debei Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov, afilu b'shas sakana. Even if a person, Rahmana litzlan, is in a scenario of danger, lo yeshana adam es atzmo min harabanus shelo. A person should not change how they carry themselves. What does that mean? It means that if you are a person who wears certain garments, and you know that Rahmana litzlan, you know that that someone's about to get you, don't change your clothes. Keep your rabbanus. Keep your stature. Keep the way that you carry yourself. Where do we see this? It says the Gemara, Shenemar Badin Gavraya Elech Kapaso B'Sarvalehon Patshehon V'Karbalason. They were still wearing their sarbalason, their chashiv clothing. So when Chagai Zechariah Malachi went into the Kivshan, they were dressed to the nines. They had all their regular clothes on. They had the hats, they had the frock, if they wore one, tzitzis. Did they wear a hat? Kippas Ruga maybe? No idea. Probably not a kippas ruga. A hat. Sounds appropriate. Sounds appropriate. Okay, says the Gemara, Amar of Yochanan, and we now turn to today's daf. Dolan Tzadikim Yoser Mimalache Hashares. Righteous people are greater than the Malache Hashares. Shne'emar, as the pasuk says, and the pasuk over here is from Daniel. Anei ve'omar ha'ana chazi guvran arba. I saw that there were 4 people. Shirayan mahalchin begonura. They were walking in the fire. V'chava lo isei behon, and they weren't even getting damaged. V'rav yadi revia dama lebar eloin. The 4th one had an appearance of an angel. So there were 3. Chagai Zechariah Malachi were 3, and the 4th being was an angel. So that's how we know that the tzaddikim were greater. Amar of Tanchum Bar Chaniloi B'Shashi Yatzu Chanani Mishal Ve'Azari Mikiv Shan Ha'esh. Could you just imagine the scene? These guys walked out unsinged, not a hair, nothing blackened on their clothing. These guys walked out perfect. Bo Kol Umos Ha'olam V'Tavchu L'Sonen Shal Yisrael Al Paneim. They went over to these Jews who were worshiping Avodah Zarah. They're like, "Are you guys crazy? Do you see what your Eibishter did for people who keep the Torah? For people who are stark? It's like the biggest chilul Hashem ever. You see Chagai Zechariah Malachi walk out of a kivshan, and there's 0 negative impact on them. And the goyim look at them and say, "How dare you? How could you? Your Eibishter is that Eibishter. He's that good, and you're worshiping Nebuchadnezzar. You couldn't find anyone better to worship. You have Hashem on your side." Miyad paschu v'amru. Then Chagai Zechariah Malachi, they chimed in. You're 100% right. The Jews got to get their stuff together. Amr of Shmuel Bar Nachmeni, Amr of Yonasan. My dechsiv. What does the pasuk mean? This is a pasuk from Shir Hashirim. Amarti elebis samar ochazav b'santinav. I'm gonna climb up a date tree and I'm gonna hold on to the branches. Says the Gemara. What does this mean homiletically? Amarti elebis samar elu Yisrael. Achshav lo ala biyadi elasan san echad. But with looking for all the Yidden, I only found one branch to grab onto. Shel Chanani Mishal ve'Azariah. Because they were the righteous ones. They were the Halig Jews who managed to navigate the Kivshon. Says the Gemara, a quarter of the way down. Amar Rav Yochanan, my dechsiv, what does the pasuk mean in Sefer Zechariah that says, Ra'isi halayla v'hinei ish rochev al sus adom? It was nighttime, and I saw a man, which we will soon see as Hashem, who was riding on a red horse. V'hu omei ben hahadasim asher b'mitzula. And he was standing on the hadasim, which is myrtle, b'mitzula. Let's see what all of these terminologies means. My ra'isi halayla. He wanted to turn the world into night. Now, this doesn't mean night in a good way. It means night in a very bad way because they were worshiping idols. That's what Rashi says. What does that mean that there was an ish rochev? Says the Gemara 3 lines before the wide lines. Ein ish ela Kadosh Baruch Hu in this context because Shneimar Hashem ish milchama Hashem shemo. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu was riding al sus edom on a red horse. He wanted the whole world to be turned into blood, into a bloodbath. The Jews deserved punishment because they were worshiping idols. But once he saw these 3 Jews who were on such a high level that they could go into the Kivshon and come out unscathed, Niskare Radaito, he calmed down. He was standing amongst the myrtle. This is referring to Chagai, Zachar, Malacha, who were righteous. How do we know that Hadassim refers to tzaddikim? Shenemar, Vahi Omein es Hadasa. We just read this past week in the Megillah. Vein Mitzula ela Bavel. Shenemar haomer latzol lecharbi v'narosecha ovish. That things are going to dry out, and the rivers are going to be dry as well. And there we see a reference to the word mitzula of litzola referring to Bavel. Miyad Malaim Roges, he went from being very angry, Nasim Sirokim Ve'adumim, Nasa Levanim. And he went from the red horse, and then really it turned out that it should be a white horse. That was really what we were going for. We wanted things to change colors. That's what the end of the pasuk says. We didn't read this, but the end of the pasuk says, V'acharav Susim Adumim Sirukim Ulevanim. There were white ones. Amar Rav Papa, about a third of the way down, 3 lines into the wide lines, Shma Mina, Susya Chivra Ma'ale Lechelma. If you are having a dream and there's a white horse in the dream, this is considered to be a good omen. It's an indicator that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given you some form of niskare radaito. He's a little bit more calm about you. Ay v'Rabbanan lehecha azlu. Where did Hananya, Zachariah, Chagai, Zachariah, Malachi, where did they go after the Kivshon? Ha'esh machlokes, Amoraim and Tanaim. Here are the Amoraim. Amar Rav, be'ayin hara mesu. Why be'ayin hara? Because look what happened when they came out. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, these people are so amazing. And that was gorem for a problem of ayin hara. Ushmuel Amar berok tavu, that they died in saliva, either homiletically that everyone was mocking them and making fun of them and spitting at them, or literally the volume of saliva from people spitting on them was so significant that they died. Hard to imagine it's the latter. And then the last shita is Rav Yochanan Amar Alu le'Eretz Yisrael v'nasu nashim v'alu debanim uvanos. The third shita is that Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, they moved to Eretz Yisrael from Bavel, and they lived a life and built a family. Kitanoi. This is no different than the machlokes Tanaim on this topic. Rabbi Eliezer Omer ba'ayin hara mesu. Rabbi Yoshua Omer berok tavu. They drowned in saliva. Chachamim Omrim alu le'eretz Yisrael v'nasu nashim v'holidu banim uvanos shenemar shmana Yoshua Kohen Hagadol ata v're'echa Yoshua levanecha ki anshe mofes hema. He was a descendant, and they were anshe mofes. They were people who were the result of or the part of a tremendous miracle. Ezehem anoshim shenasa lehem mofes havi Omer zeh Hananya, Mishael, ve'Azariah. I said the wrong names before. I said Chagai, Zachariah, and Malachi. That's not correct. It's these 3, Hananya, Mishael, ve'Azariah. Now, I know Tanakh by heart, unlike the rest of you. So I know that Daniel was friends with the three of them. So the Gemara wants to know, where was Daniel? These guys were four peas in a pod. How did you have Hananiah, Mishael, and Zachari and Azariah, and no Daniel? So the Gemara asks halfway down, Daniel lehechan azal. Omarab, he was sent by Nebuchadnezzar lemichranara rabba b'Tveria. He was sent to go do a very lengthy and difficult task, which was to dig a river or a latrine to make room for water. We'll see soon why Nebuchadnezzar wanted him out of the picture. He went to go get the seeds of aspasta, which was some type of feed for animals. Rabbi Yochanan Amar la'asuye chazire de Alexandria shel Mitzrayim. He went to go take some of the pigs out of Alexandria in Mitzrayim. Asks the Gemara, how are you allowed to do that? Eini, this should say v'hatznan. Todos harofe Omar. Ein para v'chazira yotem ila Alexandria shel Mitzrayim. Shein chodchen ha'im shelo bishvil shelo teled. There's no such thing as taking an animal out of Mitzrayim where that animal wasn't neutered or spaded, whichever one applies to the female. Which one is which? Anybody know? I don't know. Without making the animal infertile. It says the Gemara, that's actually not a problem. Zutri Icy, he brought very, very small pigs out below Da'atayu that nobody knew. He just kind of hid him under his coat and took him out, and no problem at all. And then he was going to bring them back to Nebuchadnezzar. That was his task that he was given. Tanu Rabbanan Shlosha Hayu Ba'oso Eitza. There were three people that were involved, three people that had feelings about why Daniel should not be around during the Maisa of the Kivshon Ha'esh. Says the Gemara, was a Kodesh Baruch Hu v'Daniel u'Nebuchadnezzar. Each of them had a svara as to why he should not be there. The Kodesh Baruch Hu Amar Nezel Daniel Mehacha. We got to get him out of here. We didn't want anyone to say that Hananiah and Mishael and Azariah were saved because of the schus of Daniel. Get him out of here. So Hashem said that's the reason why we wanted it to be a mamash kiddush Hashem, that people should turn and say, look at how amazing HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. But if Daniel was there, they would say it was in his schus. So Hashem didn't want him to be there. What about Daniel? The Daniel Amar Ezel Mehacha, he said, I want to leave on my own. Even without Hashem asking me to leave, I want to leave. Delole Kaim B, because I don't want them to fulfill within me Psilei Elohehem Tisrifun Ba'esh. This is unique in that Nebuchadnezzar actually thought that Daniel was a deity, which is ironic because there was an idol of Nebuchadnezzar, but he thought that Daniel was also a deity. He was a polytheist. He believed in the possibility of many gods. We'll see soon how we know that. Nebuchadnezzar, he said, Omar, Yazil Daniel Mehacha, I want him to leave. I don't want anyone to say that I burnt my own God that I believe in, because again, he believed that Daniel was some form of a deity. How do we know that Nebuchadnezzar bowed down to Daniel, that he treated Daniel like a deity? Says the Gemara, 2/3 of the way down, Dechsiv, Badin Malka Nebuchadnezzar, Nafal al Anpohi, he fell on his face, Ula Daniel Sagid, the Gomer, and he bowed down to Daniel. Again, new information, right? Daniel was treated as a deity by Nebuchadnezzar. So these are the three reasons by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by Daniel himself, and by Nebuchadnezzar as to why we did not want to have Daniel around during the Maisa of the Kivshon Ha'esh. Let's talk about a case where we had a double Navi Sheker. Says the Gemara, Ko Amar Hashem Tzvako Selokei Yisrael El Acha ben Kolia Ve'el Tzidkiya ben Maaseh Hanibim Lachem Bishmi L'Sheker. These people were liars. We'll see if the pasuk says Ve'lokech Mehem Klala L'Chol Galus Yehuda Asher Bebavel, and they were basically curse-worthy, and they were basically the opposite of the bracha we say on Friday night. Flemor Yisimcha Hashem Kitzid Kayahu Ke'achav Asher Kilei Melech Bavel Be'esh, who burned these people up in fire. Let's see what actually happened. The pasuk says Asher Sarfam Lo Ne'emar. It doesn't say that they were burned. Ella Asher Kileim, that they were singed. They weren't fully burnt. They were only partially burned. Amar Rav Yochanan Mishum Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Melamed She'asan Kiklayos. They were made like toasted grains, giving a mushal. Toasty on the outside and totally soft on the inside. Yan Asher Asu Nevela B'Yisrael, because they did something inappropriate in within the Jewish people. And they did something, they were mena'ef, they cheated with the wives of their friends. My avud, what happened? Also legabe brought to Nebuchadnezzar. These false Nevi'im went to the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Achav Omar La. What Achav said to her, remember Achav was in this pasuk. This was, what's his name? Achav ben Kolia. And Achav said, Omar La, Ko Amar Hashem Hishmi'i el Tzidkiah. If Tzidkiah, the other Navi, comes over to you and solicits you for intimacy, you need to say yes. But Tzidkiah Amar the same thing about Achav. Tzidkiah said, Ko Amar Hashem Hashmi el Achav. And she thought that was very weird. These are Jews. Jews don't do those things. So Azla ba'amr lei le'avua. She went to Nebuchadnezzar, her father, and said, Tati, things are weird here. These Jewish Nevi'im are telling me that I should be cohabiting with the other one. Doesn't make sense. Amar lei, Elokehem shel elu sone zimahi. The Goyim know this. Nebuchadnezzar said this, that the Jews should not be doing this behavior. The Jews have psukim and chumash about Eishes Ish. It's one of the 10 Commandments, Lo Sinai. So Ki Asu Legabach, Nebuchadnezzar says to his daughter, when one of these guys comes back to you, Shadrinhu Legaboy, please send them my way. I'd like to speak with them. Ki Asu Legabah, when one of these guys came back to the daughter, Shadartinhu Legabe Abba. She sent Legabe Abua. She sent these guys over to Nebuchadnezzar. Omar Lahu, and he said to the Nevi'im, Man Amar Lachon, who in the world would ever tell you a nevuah like this, that one of you should cohabit with my daughter? That doesn't make any sense. Amru, they said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Gemara, yeah, but I have a Mari Makom that doesn't work for you. You guys must be Nevi'ei Sheker, because I spoke to these other Nevi'im, the people who went through the Kivshan, and no offense or anything, but I think I trust them more than I trust you, because I saw them come out of the furnace, and I almost replaced Sefer Tehillim with my praise. So what did they say back? Amrulei, they carried on the lie. Anan nami nevi'e kavasaihu. We too are nevi'im like Hananya, Mishael, and Azariah. Lididhulo amar lahu. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't give this nevuah to them. Lididon amar lan. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it to us. We're the ones who got the nevuah that, in this case, we are allowed to cohabit with your daughter. Amar lahu, he says, you know what? I have a great idea. Ana be'ina, I would really like to do the following. De'ad bekinchu, kihechi, de'bad kitinhu, lechananya mishal ve'azariah. Let me put you through the same exact test that I did for Hananya, Mishael, and Azariah. How about I put you in the Kivshan? Amrulei, they carried on their lie still further. Inhu tzlosahavu, the untrained. No, they were 3 people, which is why they were saved. We're only 2, and we won't make it out alive. Nebuchadnezzar is no dummy. Amar lahu, bachru lechon man debaisu ba'adaichu. You can pick whoever you want to come along with you. I don't care. I just want to see if you guys are going to make it out alive, or if you're Nevi'ei Sheker. Amru, the 2 Nevi'ei Sheker, Tzidkiah and Achav, what did they say? Yoshua Kohen Gadol. We pick Yoshua Kohen Gadol. Savre, what is it that they were thinking? Lacy Yoshua, we're going to bring Yoshua the Kohen Gadol to Nafish Zechuse, who has a lot of merit, Umagna Alan, and he'll protect us. Givaldic plan. So now Achav and Tzidkiah have Yoshua Kohen Gadol. They have been lying about cohabiting with the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, and instead of just cutting their head off, which for him would not have been a big deal, he put them through this test. So Achtiyuhu Shadinhu, he took them, he put them in the fire. Inhu Iklu. These 2 guys, these 2 charlatans, they died right away in the fire. Yoshua Kohen Gadol is Ruche Mane. He lived, his clothes got burned, singed actually, but he didn't die. Shne'emar, as the pasuk says, this is a pasuk from Zechariah. Vayar'eni es Yoshua HaKohen HaGadol omed lifnei malach Hashem v'gomer. Uchsiv, and the pasuk says, Vayomer Hashem el Satan yigar Hashem b'cha v'chulei. Amar lei, Yodana d'tzadika at. I know, Nebuchadnezzar says to Yoshua Kohen Gadol, that you are righteous. Why did the fire impact you even at all? If you're righteous, you should have come out like Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. It says the Gemara, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, lo hanu klal. They weren't impacted at all. So again, Yoshua Kohen Gadol, what is your problem? Amar Lahu, Amar Le, he says back to Nebuchadnezzar, Inhu tlasahavu va'anochad. They were three. I was with a bunch of goons. I'm only one. So they were three tzaddikim. I'm one. The aggregate of all their zechuyos protected them. But I'm only one yid. What do you want from me? It says the Gemara, Amar Le, Nebuchadnezzar is no dummy. He's learned Shnai Mikabech Targum. So Avram Yachid Hava. Avram was put in the fire. He was only one yid, and he came out okay. So Yoshua Kohen Gadol, if you're a righteous person, you should have come out unsinged. Forget about unburned. Even your clothes should have been fine. Says the Gemara, Hasan by Avraham when he went in the fire, lo havu rishayim bahadeh. He didn't go in the fire with rishayim. I did. Because Avram went in without rishayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't give permission to the fire to burn Avram. He went in, got a little bit of warmth from the heat. Nothing happened to him. But Hacha, says Yoshua Kohen Gadol, for me, when I went in the fire, Havu Rishayim Bahadi, I had these people with me who were Rishayim. They were Pashat Nevi'ei Sheker. They were lying. The Isyai Rishusa Lenura. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu did give permission for the fire to take its natural course of events, but only to a limited scope, which is that my clothes burned, but I didn't burn. And this is like a catchphrase that we no longer say. If you have two dry logs and one wet log, the dry logs are going to burn the wet log. We have this in our backyard. We have a little fire pit. It's a portable one, a cheapy one. When the logs are wet, they don't light very well, but the bark will singe on the outside if the other logs are hot enough. My time anish. Still, the Gemara says, Yoshua Kohen Gadol, still this was a punishment, because even though I can explain that you were with Rishoyim, still if you were a perfect tzaddik, implies the Gemara, you wouldn't have had even your clothes singed. So how do we explain this? The Gemara says 4 lines from the bottom, and it's already 9:17. We're not even at the bottom of the first page. Amar Rav Papa, Shayubanov, the sons of Yoshua Kohen Gadol were Nosim Nashim, She'enan Hagunos Lekahuna Velo Micha Behem. They married girls, but the skirts were a little short, whatever the equivalent was that made them Einon Hagunos, and he didn't oppose them. He didn't oppose the marriage to these girls. Emar, Yoshua Haya Lavush Begadim Tsoim. The Yoshua wore sullied clothing. Asks the Gemara, the Talmud Chacham doesn't walk around with his clothes that were a total mess. You don't do that. You're put together. You're a Zayin Mensch. Rather, what the pasuk means when it says that Yoshua Kohen Gadol was wearing clothing that were tzoim, that were sullied and filthy, is that his children were marrying daughters that were in Hagun for kahuna, the lo micha bahen. 2 lines from the bottom. Amar Reb Tanchum Darash Bar Kapara B'Tzipori. My deceive. What does the pasuk mean in the story of Rus and Boaz when it says Sheish HaSeorim Ha'ele Nosan Li, where Rus says he gave me 6 barleys? What unit of measure are we talking about? Do you think my Sheish Seorim, even my Sheish Seorim Mamish, 6 individual pieces of barley? I ate that on 1 spoon when I had a cholent earlier today. No way. The Chidarko Shel Boaz, who was a wealthy philanthropist helping Rus, do you think he gave her Litain Matana Sheish Seorim? That he gave her 6 pieces of barley? Pasha, that's not what happened. Top of Tzadi Gimel Amud Beis. Ela Sheish Sayin? You want to say he gave her Sheish Sayin, that he gave her 6 massive portions, that she was a regular woman, 120 pounds. You think she was carrying that on her back? The Chidarka Shalisha, Lital Sheish Sayin. Ela Remez Ramazla. Really, whatever he gave her, the Gemara is not clear. But he gave her a remez that had to do with the number 6. What remez was Boaz giving Rus? Says the Gemara, Sha'asidin Shisha Banim Latzeis Mimena Shemis barchen b'sheish sheish brachos. But he was going to say that she will have 6 descendants who each had 6 brachos. And we're going to go through all 6. Ve'eluhain, here are the 6 people. David, Umashiach, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, ve'Azariah. Those are the 6. What are the 6 brachos that David had? Says the Gemara at Tzadi Gimel Amud Beis, 5 lines down. David dechsiv hayan echad me'ana'arim vayomer hine ra'isi ben li-Yeshai. There's a son of Yeshai, Beis Halachmi, which is where we got our language from for Kabbalah Shabbos, from here. He's Yodea Nagain. He knows how to play guitar. The Gibor Chayil. He's a very strong fighter. The Ish Milchama. He's a warrior. The Navon Davar. He's very wise. The Ish Toar. He was a good-looking person. The Hashemimo. These were the 6 traits of David HaMelech that Boaz was hinting to Rus by the number of 6 for the barley. Bamar of Yehuda Marab, that this whole pasuk was used by Doag to place a wedge between David and Shaul. He was using all of these things in the negative. How did he do that? Yodea Nagain, he said to Shaul, oh, David HaMelech, he is Sheyodea Lishael. He knows how to ask a Gevaldik Shaila to Bavorn. He knows how to ask a real Shaila. Gibor Sheyodea La'ashiv. He knows how to respond. He could be the Shaul L'Meshiv in Yeshiva. What did the pasuk mean when it said Ish Milchama? Doeg said to Shaul, Sheyodea Lisa B'litin B'macham to Shaul Torah is the best chavrus in the base medrash. He knows how to handle. I Ish Toar Shemar upon him Ba'alacha. He was a posek. He knew how to answer shilas. The Navon Davar. What does that mean? V'Navon Davar. This is based on a Gemara Maseches Shabbos. Shemebin Davar mitoch Davar. This is one of the 6 questions we get asked after 120 years. Were you able to extrapolate from one case to another, which is what all of Shas is? V'Hashemimo, says the Gemara, Shalvacha kmosa b'chol makom. Says Doeg to Shaul, we always paskin like David. He was creating jealousy. These 6 milas in David are things that David has, and you, Shaul, maybe you don't have them. Dogs the Gemara, Bekulhu, and all of these things, Amar Lahu, Yehonasan b'ni kamohu. Shaul said, my son Yehonasan is just like David, except for one. Tevan to Amar Le, that Hashem imo, that Hashem is with him, namely, that David was the posek. Everybody listen to this Piskei Halacha. Milsa de b'didei nami lo haba, but even by Shaul he didn't have that. Falash daite. And therefore, Doeg was successful in sticking a wedge between David and Shaul. Chalash daite, Shaul became chalash. V'ikani bey, debeshol tzivu v'chol asher yifne yarshia. Everything he turned to became bad. V'David tzivu v'chol asher yifne yatzliach. So this is how the Gemara says that a wedge was placed between David and Shaul. Minolan de Doeg haba. How do we know this about Doeg? Because the Gemara says, the pasuk that we spoke about, Ksiv Hacha Vayan Echad Mehane'arim. That was the pasuk that we said toward the top of the page about David. The pasuk says that it was Echad Mehane'arim. Which Na'ar was it? Miyuchad Shebin Na'arim, the special one of the Na'arim. Ksiv Hasam V'Shem Ish Me'eved Shaul B'Yomahu Netzar Lifnei Hashem Ushmo Doeg Ha'adomi Abir Haroim Asher LaShaul. All of this is person number 1 with his 6 blessings. Doeg used the same 6 blessings to create a wedge between David and Shaul. Who's person number 2? A little close to halfway down, says the Gemara Mashiach, the second descendant of Rus that Boaz was referring to. D'chsiv, v'nocha alav ruach Hashem, ruach chochma uvina, ruach etzel gvur, ruach das v'iras Hashem. Says the Gemara, these 6 things are about Mashiach. D'chsiv v'heirichu b'yiras Hashem. He was able to be meiriach. He would have a smell about Yiras Hashem. What does this mean? Amar Rabbi Alexandri Malamed Sheitino mitzvos v'yisurim kirechayim. The Mashiach had mitzvos and he experienced yisurim like a mill, friction. Very, very, very difficult life for him. Rav Amar, no. When the pasuk says ve'iricho b'yiras Hashem demoreach vadoyim, he was able to smell a psak. Sometimes, you hear a shaila, you're like, I don't know the answer, but I know it doesn't sound right. I called Rabbi Reese from Home Depot right before Sukkot. They have these packages of the hot hands. You tear them open. When it interacts with the air, it becomes hot. Rabbi Shlita, can we open these on Yontif? Is it makeh b'patish if I open these? Because I'm not doing anything be'etzim to the packet. The packet has a chemical reaction. It's exothermic is heat. It has an exothermic reaction. When the oxygen hits it, exothermic reaction, it puts off heat. Gewaldic. But I want the people in my sukkah to be warm. Rabbi Reese said, I don't know if I should be worried about it, but I'm worried about it. It doesn't pass the smell test. And he said, you should not do it. That's this. The Gemara says that it should be the moreach vadayin, that the Mashiach should be able to have a sense of halacha just from hearing the shaila, even if he can't place one mare makom. That's a posek. That's a posek. The seed, below the mare einov yishbot, he's not judging by his eyes. The shafat b'tzedek dalin v'ochiach b'mishor le'inui haaretz. So that's what the Gemara says. And then with Bar Koziba, who's actually Bar Kochva, Melech Tartain Shnin Upalga, he was king for 2.5 years. Amar Lula Rabban, and he said, on the Mashiach. He says, I'm Mashiach. They said, Amrulay. Well, by Mashiach, it says, let's see if you really know how to paskin from the kishkas, just from the smell test. They ended up killing him, or maybe they didn't kill him, maybe they excommunicated him. And then the Gemara says, remember that we said that by Daniel, that by Boaz and Rus, what was the barley of 6? We said that Boaz was hinting to 6 people. We spoke about 2 of them. We spoke about David and his 6 traits and Mashiach and his 6 traits. Let's talk about people 3, 4, 5, and 6. Daniel, Hanani, Mishael, Azariah were the last of the list of 6. What were their kochos hanefesh? Dechsibahu asher ein bahem kol mum, v'tovei mare, u'baskilim v'kol chachma, v'yodei adas, u'mavinei mada, asher koch bahem lamor behechal hamelech u'lolamdam sefer v'loshan kazdi. The Gemara says that they had these 6 kochos, that they had no flaws, they were good looking, they were wise, they had knowledge, they had understanding, and they had the koch to stand in front of the king, and they could teach and speak the Babylonian language. My asher ein bahem kol mum. What was the fact that they didn't have a flaw? We only have a few minutes left until Ma'ariv. So says the Gemara, Amr Reb Chama bar Chananya, afilu kirivda de kuslisa lo havabahu. These people didn't even have a scar from bloodletting. They never experienced medical issues. It was their bloodletting is like our blood taking, right? Come get a blood test every couple of months. We have a needle stuck in our arm. It happens all the time by people who are watching their health. That's what the Gemara says. They were so. What does it mean that they had the capacity to stand in the presence of the king? Amar Rebbe Chama b'Reb Chanina Melamed shahayu onsenes atzman. That when they were in front of the king, they had control over their body. Minaschok, they wouldn't laugh. Uminasicha, they wouldn't have conversations. Uminashena, they would push off all their tiredness. And they were able to hold off, even on the natural, going to the bathroom in front of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar is not frum. We're from a Yidden. That's an Isser Derabanan to hold in going to the bathroom. The Halacha L'Maisa and Shulchan Aruch state it's like this. If a person knows they have to go to the bathroom within 72 minutes, it is an Isser Derabanan to hold it in. Go straight to the bathroom. Even if you miss Tefillah B'Tzibur, even if you miss Shachrit, what are you supposed to do? You're putter. You don't have a choice. It's an Isser Derabanan to hold in going to the bathroom. That's what the Gemara says. Amar Rebbe Lazar, Kulan Mibnei Yehudahim, Yehem. So he says all of these Jews, the 6 of them were from Bnei Yehuda. Rav v'Rebbe Shmuel bar Nachmeni Amar Daniel Mibnei Yehuda, and Chananya, Mishael, ve'Azariah mi She'ar Shivatim. And we're going to have to stop right here because it's the cleanest place to stop in the next 2 minutes. We're going to stop 4 lines into the wide lines. We are behind. I might do, I don't know what we're going to do. I'm thinking of doing a recording first thing in the morning and posting. I don't know what to do. We're going to be so far behind. The blot are huge. Let me take a look and see what's going to happen. Meanwhile, we'll pause right here. Wishing you all a beautiful night.